Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to our lead story. So, the Redskins have an abundance of injuries, and we're only 2 weeks into the season. It is disgusting how this team just can't seem to avoid injuries. And it seems like every day we find out about some other injury that we didn't know existed the day previous. And while it seems like you may be getting this guy back, this guy may be out, there's so much uncertainty surrounding this football team on the defensive side of football. Remember, last year, all of the injuries came to the offensive side, and really we stayed relatively healthy on the defensive side. Dunny went down last year at the cornerback position, and we lost Ioannidis for a short, brief period of time. But for the most part, the defense was healthy all 2018. Well, the injuries have started to mount on the defensive side, and we're still relatively healthy on the offensive side. Now, Derrius Guice was the big story on Thursday with his injury. We talked about that yesterday and trying to get more information. Well, we found out that the meniscus injury is serious enough to the point where he requires surgery. He elected to have that surgery, which is going to put him in a 6 to 8 week timetable. Now, the Redskins have a decision to make. I think that decision is probably going to be to place him on the short-term IR because, let's face it, he's probably going to be closer to the 8 weeks than the 6 weeks. And if you're closer to the 8 weeks, you can't come back off of short-term IR until week 11. That's right around when he would be coming off of it if he's out for 8 weeks. So I think the Redskins, and if we're over here penny pinching roster spots and sitting AD down because you need roster spots for special teams, then I think it would be very prudent on the Redskins' part to go ahead and go and make Derrius Guice an IR member and put him on the short-term IR so that he can come back at around week 11 or so. And that'll probably also be the same time frame if things don't go well. We'll be right in the midst of Dwayne Haskins getting his feet wet in this league. So we'll see. If the Redskins are good, then he'll be right on time. But as of right now, Guice is going to be out for the foreseeable future. And the Redskins have a decision to make. And we'll probably hear about that either tomorrow or Saturday, sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours, whether he's going to be placed on short-term IR or not. Then you look at some of the other guys. As we continue with the injuries on the defensive side, Caleb Brantley dealing with a foot injury. Don't think he's playing this week. I told you I don't expect him to play this week. Jonathan Allen with the knee. Gruden talked about Allen and how he thinks that, Allen is a guy that you have to, and I said this before, you got to save Jonathan Allen from himself. Remember, he wanted to come back in the Philadelphia game. And if he could, he would have. Those types of guys, you got to protect them from themselves because if you allow them, they're going to go out and play. All right? So with Allen, you can't listen to him. Someone brought up the tweet that he had yesterday that he feels good and that he's okay. And I'm like, you can't listen to players because players, remember guys telling us he was fine after the New England game last year in the preseason? You remember I played the video on the Derrius Guice torn ACL video of him saying, I'm good with the sucker in his mouth. And then 5 minutes later, we found out his ACL was torn. Yeah. You can't listen to players, okay? They're always going to tell you they're good. That they've been trained to think that way. They've been wired that way. So I don't know if Jonathan Allen is playing. I told you I don't think he's going to play. Gruden sounds a little bit more optimistic than I am that he's going to play. But then again, Gruden was optimistic last week that Jordan Reed was going to play. So I don't think that Jonathan Allen is playing in this game. I'm preparing as if he's not playing. If he does, well, that's a great boost. We'll see what happens. Then you look at the cornerback situation. Man, is the secondary somewhat in trouble this week. So you start with Quinton Dunbar, who, again, we had no idea that Quinton Dunbar's injury was this serious. All right? I don't even know if I mentioned him yesterday as a guy that didn't practice, but here we are. Thursday afternoon, and Quinton Dunbar hasn't practiced. And now you look at the cornerback situation. Fabian Moreau did practice yesterday, as I mentioned. But you're still not 100% certain he's going to come back and play. But if he can, that'll be a boost to the secondary. But you're losing one of your starting boundary corners in Quinton Dunbar, who most likely will not play in this game. And remember, he went down with an injury versus Philadelphia in the game, but he came back. So we didn't think it was that serious. Well, it's a little bit more serious than we thought, and he may not go this week. What about Monte Nicholson? I told you I was worried about the injury. Jay tried to downplay it yesterday. It sounds like Monte may not be able to go, and I heard a report that people in the building think that Monte is going to miss this game versus the Cowboys. Again, I asked you a poll question about which one of these injuries, if all of these guys were out, Geis, Allen, and Nicholson, of all those guys, which one would the Redskins feel the most? I honestly believe it would be Monte Nicholson. I think we can find a way to get around Jonathan Allen for one more week. But if Monte Nicholson isn't in the lineup at safety, I think that is a death blow to this Redskins defense. Because I just don't love what we have to replace him. At least along the defensive line, you still feel good about Payne and Ioannidis and Settle. I mean, at least you feel like there's some other guys that may be able to pick up the slack there. There is no one at safety that you feel 100% confident in their ability to come in and give you quality snaps and not be a significant drop-off. I'm not really comfortable with what we have at safety. I've said that in the past. But, again, we will see what happens there. We're dealing with a myriad of injuries. 2 corners, a safety, a defensive lineman, 2 defensive linemen, and Darius Geis at the running back position. It's not even week 2 yet, fully week 2 yet, and we're already dealing with all of these injuries. It just seems like we're snake bitten or something here. Someone sent out one of my favorite sayings on Twitter: why can't we have nice things? And I ask myself this all the time, but I'm not here to wallow in our own self-pity and misery. We got to move on. We got a big game coming up in week 2. Let's get to in other news. And so both coaches, Jay Gruden, head coach, defensive coordinator, Greg Minuski, stepped up to the podium. Let me say this right now. I'm ready for Greg Minuski to get the hell out of here now. Not like now, like right now. His press conference was Bruce Allen-esque in that he said absolutely nothing. He didn't answer questions. And these were very easy questions for him to answer, such as, hey, how do you plan on getting more pressure on the quarterback in week 2 versus Dak Prescott? And he simply said nothing. He said a bunch of words that equated to nothing. They asked him about how did the inside linebackers do? You had a rotation of 3 guys. How did they do? He didn't answer the damn question. He said a lot of nothing. They asked him about, blowing a 17-point lead and having success in the first half and how that didn't translate and how do you clean up some of the communication issues. He said nothing. His press conference was literally 5 minutes and 50 seconds of nothing. He could have kept his ass in his office if he was going to come to the podium and do that shit. I'm ready for him to get his ass the hell out of here. Get him the hell out of here. He stinks. That being said, Jay Gruden did have some things to say. He talked about the injuries, as I kind of alluded to already. And Jay talked about how Jordan Reed is progressing and they think he can play this week, but they're not sure. Just like Darius, he talked about Darius's injury and how he's going to be out for a while. They talked about Fabian Moreau and how Fab is on the mend and he's trending towards playing, but they're not certain. They can't say the same right now for Monte nor Quentin Dunbar, but Jay left all of that stuff open for interpretation. So we'll see what happens with all of those situations. He talked about AD and his ability to help this offense. He talked about some of the guys getting more comfortable in the offense and all the things they're going to have to do against a very talented Dallas Cowboys football team. And Jay kind of rattled off a bunch of names and guys that have hurt us in the past. Tank Lawrence. Remember what he did to us on Thanksgiving last year with the interception and a sack fumble and all of the things that he was able to do to cause havoc. He talked about Dak Prescott and his improvement and how we got to get to the quarterback, which it doesn't change from week to week. In the NFC, sans for the Giants, and they're going to have a mobile quarterback soon in Daniel Jones. You're going to have to get to these quarterbacks because if you don't, they're going to extend plays. They're going to use their legs to pick up yardage. They're going to break our backs. Dak Prescott has done it numerous times in the past. So has Carson Wentz. We got to get to Dak Prescott or else we're going to be in trouble. And Jay pretty much said as much. So Jay was a guy that sounded focused on trying to avoid 0-2, not just overall, but again, more importantly, in the division. If you have any hopes of making noise in the NFC East, You're going to have to win this football game. You cannot afford to fall to 0-2. Not overall in the season. You can dig yourself out of an 0-2 hole. It's going to be tough, but you can do it. But in the division, you only get 6 of these in the division, all right? In case you guys stop counting, you only get 6 of these in the division. You fall to 0-2 in the division, you would have to go 4-0 the remainder of the season to be able to have a winning record in the division. That's tough sledding. All right, that is very tough sledding. I don't like our odds if we don't win this football game. So Jay sounded like a man that knew that this was an important one that they had to have. And I think this is one that is very attainable if things go in the Redskins' favor. So we go from, in other news, to the final outcome and what it will take to get a win in week number 2 versus the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys coming to FedEx Field, 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. And look, I've talked about this before. As a matter of fact, I ended the show yesterday by saying the Redskins need to wear their white unis and force the Cowboys to wear their dark navy blues. Hopefully it's sunny outside and the sun soaks up that dark navy blue and makes it that much harder on the Cowboys on Sunday. That being said, take that and push it aside. When you look at this football game, I think there are so many fascinating storylines and matchups that the Redskins have to win if they're going to have any shot at beating the Cowboys. The Cowboys on paper are a far superior team to the Redskins. When you look at the talent, it's not even up for debate. Their receivers are better on paper. They had 200-yard receivers last week. You add in Randall Cobb, and it makes that offense that much more dangerous. Sprinkle in a little touch of Jason Witten. I'm not afraid of him, but he does help in the run game as a much better blocker at the tight end position. Zeke Elliott, I think it's a wash, honestly. I think us getting AD back at the running back position, coupled with Chris Thompson's ability to catch it out of the backfield and help us, I think that gives us a equal standing with the Cowboys at the running back position, although Zeke Elliott is a man beast. He's coming off of missing the entire preseason and really not being hit. Last week was his first time getting his feet wet in the game and being contacted. I think he's still working his way back. He probably will be in a much better state come next week, but I think we got a chance to take advantage of him. Still being a little bit rusty. Not that much, but enough to the point where I feel like we can go in there and stop the run. We got to stop the run. It is not optional this week. What we did in the first half versus the Eagles versus what we did in the second half cannot happen. It's got to be 4 quarters of the Redskins doing what they did to Zeke Elliott in game number 1 last year in FedEx, where he had 15 carries for 33 yards. We need one of those types of performances if we're going to have any shot of defeating the Dallas Cowboys in this football game. Much like last week, the trenches is important. All right, the Cowboys dominated us on Thanksgiving last year up in the trenches. They got to the quarterback. They made life living hell for Colt McCoy, and they ultimately got to him and forced him into some mistakes. We got to protect just like we did last week, but we got to avoid the penalties, the holding, the false starts. Those have to be eliminated. The chop blocks, those cannot be a part of the game plan this week. If those happen, we're going to find ourselves behind the sticks, down in distance like we did last week. And right now, we haven't proven that, unlike the 2016 Redskins and the 2015 Redskins, where it was 2nd and 20, so what? We could pick that up in our sleep. That's not the case. The last 3 years, in 17, 18, and so far in this year, small sample size, but we haven't proven that we can overcome 2nd and 17. We haven't proven that 1st and 20 isn't an obstacle for us. We have to stay in 3rd and manageable. And if we can do that like we did early in the game versus Philadelphia, I think we can move the football. This Cowboys defense does not scare me. They have talent. No doubt about that. But not to the point where you feel like this is a daunting task. I think their secondary can be had. I look at their corners, I'm unimpressed. I look at their safeties, I'm unimpressed. That's where they can be taken advantage of. But it starts in the trenches by being able to protect against their 4-man rush, against them blitzing with those athletically gifted linebackers. If we're going to have success, we got to give Case Keenum the time he needs to survey the field and pick out the right receiver and get him the football. If we don't, it's going to be another long game for the Redskins. And I'll take it a step further. We got to be able to run the football. And look, last week, I know a lot of you were making a big stink about the run game and 10 carries for Geis and only 18 yards. Jay Gruden actually did a really good job of mixing in the run last week. I didn't have any issues with the way we ran the football, especially when you go back upon further review and watch the game. He tried to run the football. And there were some good runs in there, some good hits that got called back due to penalties. So it took away from some of the yards per carry and the average and all of that good stuff. I thought Jay did a good job of mixing in running pass last week. There was a reason play action fake actually worked last week because the Eagles had to respect the run game. I thought Jay did a fine job of running the football last week. I know the numbers may not bear that out, but penalties had something to do with it. And being behind the sticks also didn't help the Redskins in that regard. But I think that if the Redskins can establish a run, and I think Adrian Peterson is our best option at running back on the football team. I do. I seriously believe that. And I think he is going to be fresh. Hasn't played this season. I think he's going to be ready to go. And I think he is going to give us a very formidable rushing attack, which will allow us to then use Scary Terry and P. Rich down the field vertically. It's going to open up things for guys like Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis over the middle of the field. And it's also going to allow a guy like Trey Quinn to work in space. I really believe the run game is going to be much better this week than it was last week. I saw Saquon Barkley run for over 100 yards against this same Cowboys defense last week. If he can do it, I feel like Adrian Peterson and his Redskins rushing attack can do something comparable. Not necessarily match what Saquon Barkley did because, again, he's a different level talent. However, I think we can do something comparable, something that will give us a chance in the passing game because the run game has been effective enough to where the Cowboys must respect it. So I think the trenches are going to be key. Another big thing, can't turn it over. The last time we played the Cowboys, turnovers doomed us. I didn't think Colt McCoy played that bad, to be honest with you, but he threw too many interceptions. He had 3 in that game. The first one was backbreaking. We were on a drive, and he throws it up for grabs and gets picked off. The one late was a killer. Any kind of comeback that we were trying to mount, I thought it was pass interference on that play, but it doesn't matter. Still was picked off. And then, of course, the one that really bust the game wide open. We were right there. Tank Lawrence is able to pick off a pass, and that really swung the game, all the momentum in the favor of the Dallas Cowboys. Too many mistakes. We were mistake-free in terms of turnovers last week. We got to stay that way. But this week, we need to actually force some turnovers. The Cowboys were as clean as they could be last week from a turnover standpoint. They were never in danger of turning the football over against the Giants last week. We have to change that. Let's get to the defensive side of the football and what it's going to take for us to win. When you're looking at individual matchups, I look at the football team, and I think that Lyle Collins at right tackle is the key to the Redskins getting pressure on the quarterback. When you look at the rest of that Cowboys offensive line, those guys are as stout as it gets in this league. All right, you talk about Tyron Smith. You're talking about Zach Martin. You're talking about Travis Frederick. You look at all those guys. These are rocks, anchors. I don't see the Cowboys having any issues from the center position over. But that right side of the offensive line, I think there is a chance for the Redskins to take advantage of some things over there. If I'm Greg Minuski, I'm scheming up, I'm conjuring up all of my blitz packages to attack the right side of this Cowboys offensive line. I think that's the side where confusion can be had. I think that's the side where you have a liability at right tackle in Lyle Collins. I think he's a better guard than he is a tackle. I think the Redskins can take advantage of him, but they've got to be able to be smart in what they do. You can't telegraph your blitzes. The Redskins seem to be telegraphing blitzes left and right. It makes it so much easier when you tell them, hey, we're coming with double A gap pressure. Yeah, well, we'll just pinch the line inside and have our back pick up any scragglers that are coming along, and we'll be fine. You can't telegraph where it's coming from. Think the blitz on the right side of the line, come from the left side, or vice versa. You have to throw different things at these teams, and you got to get them thinking. You got to get them off their game plan. And so the Redskins have to be better at producing pressure. Jay Gruden talked about that at the podium today. And Greg Minuski didn't really say much. We just got to be better at communication. Duh, dummy. All right, you're not telling us anything that we don't already know. How are you going to be better? He gave us nothing at the podium. I have no confidence, zero confidence in his ability to coach up this defense and get the most out of the talent that we do have. However, I'm putting the onus on the players to go out and make plays. When I look at some matchups, Josh Norman on either Amari Cooper or Michael Gallup is going to be huge. Those guys both had over 100 yards receiving last week. I feel like if we could just take one of those guys away, I'll take my chances with Randall Cobb in the slot, although I don't like the matchup. I will take my chances with Randall Cobb. He's not going to necessarily hurt you for a 77-yard touchdown. But Michael Gallup or Amari Cooper will, as we saw last year with Amari Cooper, when he went bonkers and apeshit against us last year, we have to find a way to slow their passing attack down. Keeping Dak Prescott in the pocket. We saw what happened last week when we allowed Carson Wentz out of the pocket. We've seen in the past what happens when Dak Prescott is able to get out of the pocket against us. It is imperative that we keep him in the pocket, bottled up, and are able to apply pressure. When you get to Dak Prescott, he's got small hands. You get to him, you hit him, the ball will and can come out. We've seen it happen in the past. All right, as a matter of fact, last year at FedEx Field, the ball came out not once but twice on a quarterback sneak, and in the biggest play of the game, when Preston Smith was able to scoop up the football and score, or was it Kerrigan? Either way, that was a massive play in the game. Dak Prescott will put it on the turf, but you got to get to him first, which we didn't do last week, and we didn't do in the second matchup in Dallas on Thanksgiving last year. We have to find a way to get to the quarterback. It is imperative. I think we can have good enough success on first and second down. I really do. I think where the problem lies, last week, it was third downs. The Eagles were like 11 of 15 on third down last week. We didn't get a single stop on third down until their final drive of the game, which they didn't give a shit at that point. The game was pretty much already decided at that point of the game. But in the entire second half, we didn't get one single stop on third down when it mattered. That can't happen in this game. We have to get off the field on third downs. All right. I think our first and second down defense will be much improved. All right. I don't think those guys are going to be gassed. I think our linebacker play will be improved. I think we'll be able to stop the run effectively. What I'm nervous about is 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10. We're playing often soft on 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 5 and giving them 7 and 10 yards of space. Or we're allowing guys to run by us because we're slow of foot in the secondary. That's what worries me. Not the front seven. I think they're going to be much better in this game. That is the strength of our football team, and I think we will see that in this game. What I worry about is the secondary. The easiest way to alleviate the pressure of the secondary and all these injuries we have, possibly no Monte Nicholson, possibly no Quentin Dunbar, possibly no Fab Moreau. The way to alleviate all of the injuries and the pressure that is going to be felt in the secondary is by getting to the quarterback. The Redskins can do that. I think they've got a legitimate shot of taking the Cowboys down and getting back to 500 on the season. I really think that there is a legitimate opportunity in this football game for the Redskins to do some good things. And so I think this is a win for the Redskins. I really do. I look at this game. I said it when I broke down the schedule in August. Nothing has changed with me. I'm even more encouraged by what I saw because I didn't think the offense would be this good. Now, again, small sample size. The offense could go in the toilet in week 2, and they could look like a shell of themselves from week 1. But I'm telling you, I feel so much better about this team because of what I saw on the offensive side, but I feel less confident because of what I saw on the defensive side. So both of these sides have something to prove. The offense has to prove that week 1 wasn't a fluke, and the defense has to prove that week 1 was an anomaly and that they're a much better unit than what we saw in the second half. And so I'm banking on the latter, that both of those units will step up, rise to the occasion, and give us a shot to win this football game. I got the Redskins beating the Dallas Cowboys in this football game, 24-22 in FedEx Field and at 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. I think the Redskins win the football game just like they did last year on a missed Brett Maher field goal at the end from 51 yards away as the Redskins preserve victory and win 24-22. So let's get to the Redskins Nightly News poll question. And I saw what you guys were saying. I went to the website and I myself had issues with the poll question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the lab this weekend and I'm going to rectify this problem. I'm going to figure out what the issue is and I'm going to make sure I fix it. So there will be no poll question tonight. In its place, I have something else called Behind Enemy Lines. So we'll do that here in a second. But let's read the poll results from yesterday. And the question reads, assuming that they can't go in week 2 versus Dallas, which one of these players' absence will be felt the most? All right. And so your options were Jonathan Allen with the MCL sprain, running back Darius Geis with the meniscus injury, or safety Monte Nicholson with the foot. And 68 of you were able to vote. Thank you for voting. For those of you who tried and weren't able to, I thank you as well. And I had the same issue, so I know that it is a legit reason that a lot of you haven't been able to vote over the last week or so. So I apologize for that, and I'm going to fix it. And so by Monday, we should have a new poll question up, and hopefully everything will be working the way that it's supposed to. In the meantime, 51 of you, okay, over 3/4 of you, almost 4/5 of you, 80% of you think that Jonathan Allen will be the biggest missed player if these guys cannot go. At 51 of you voting out of 68, that is a high number. I actually think Fabian Moreau, and I think that Jonathan Allen, if you were to tell me over the long haul, yeah, we would probably miss him more. But if you're talking about just this week against Dallas, I with the way they can run in the secondary, with all that speed they have at the receiver position, I think Monte Nicholson is the guy that we would miss the most. His ability to range all over the football field, I think you cannot replace that. Even though Troy Apke can run, I don't think any of us have confidence that Troy Apke can step in and get the job done. 17 of you said that Monte Nicholson would be the guy that would worry you the most if he couldn't go. I would be in that camp if I were to vote. And then Darius Geis got 0 votes. And I believe that, and I think you guys believe that too. Why? Because we have Adrian Peterson. On the bright side, it could have been a lot worse. All right? Adrian Peterson could not be on this roster if Jay Gruden would have gotten his way. And Samaje Perine could be starting right now. And we could have also kept Josh Doxson on the roster as our 5th wide receiver, and he could be on IR with a foot injury right now. So things could actually be a lot worse. If you want to look at it glass half full, we actually are in a much better position than we could have been had things went the way Jay Gruden might have preferred them to go. So with that being said, let's now turn our attention as we end this show. I thank you guys for joining me here on the Redskins Nightly News. We're going to end this show with something that I like to call Behind Enemy Lines, as we take a closer, in-depth look at the Dallas Cowboys with a special guest. You guys enjoy the football tonight, and over the weekend, we'll come back, converse on Sunday. Hopefully, it'll be rejoicing in a Redskins victory. Nonetheless, leave your comments down in the comment section as to what you think is going to happen in this game. I want score and more down in the comment section. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. You guys enjoy your weekend. Hopefully, we come back talking about Redskins victory. Hail to the Redskins. And also, this has been the Redskins Nightly News. Enjoy Behind Enemy Lines. What's going on, Redskin fans? So here I am protesting peacefully, I might add, on behalf of our beloved Washington Redskins. And look who showed up. The law showed up. None other than Law Thomas of Law Nation, big Cowboys fan. Law, thank you for joining us on the program.
All right, man. Really appreciate it, man. Wonderful platform. I'm just getting a little squirmish, man, with all of this burgundy, man.
Like I was talking about yesterday, hopefully we'll make you guys put on your all blues that you hate to wear. You know, let us wear the whites at home. Normally we like to throw on the burgundies at home, and then you'll get to wear your customary whites. Nah. Make them throw on the navy blues that they don't ever like to wear. Right, exactly.
It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot outside.
That's
so I want to wear my light colored clothes. You know?
Exactly. It's hot. Let the sun soak up that dark navy blue, man. All right, so I want to start with Dak Prescott. There's been so much made of Dak Prescott, this Cowboys football team, with all the contract situations. They've handed out a lot of money over the last couple of months, it seems like. Lyle Collins got paid. Jalen Smith got paid. Ezekiel Elliott obviously just got paid, and now Dak's the last guy that you think is going to probably get paid. And it seems like it's imminent. Is this the most comfortable you've seen Dak Prescott look? I thought he looked excellent in week 1 versus the Giants. And we'll talk about the weaponry that he's surrounded by. We'll talk about his offensive coordinator here in a second. But is this the most comfortable that Dak Prescott has looked to you in a Dallas Cowboys uniform?
Most quarterbacks blossom when they get into their 4th year. And if you look at his mechanics, his footwork, the way the delivery of the ball and the way he reads the field is a whole lot better than what he did the previous years. I'm thinking that with Kellen Moore's offense, as well as with the Kittners of the world, of just sitting down and going over each little small things helps out Dak Prescott. And plus, it's going into his 4th years. So yeah, it's his most comfortable year. Yeah, he's looking comfortable.
I look at all the weaponry on this football team. You got multiple tight ends, Witness back. You look at the receivers. You had 200-yard receivers on Sunday versus the Giants, and Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper. And then you add Randall Cobb in the slot. Is this the most weaponry that Dak Prescott has had surrounding him in his Cowboys career?
I mean, he got solid weapons all over. I'm looking at the fact that, yeah, you're looking at the 2nd year with Michael Gallup. You already know that he can catch the ball and pluck it out of the sky. He's the physical guy, so he's going to play the X position. And then on top of that, you got Amari Cooper, who can take the top off the defense, who can run routes like no other, second to none. And then you add in a Randall Cobb, and then you split that situation with a Tony Pollard, who can be versatile enough to run out of the backfield and also line up in the slot. They got so many weapons, nuanced route runners, and then they have a coach who believes in the new philosophy as far as the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. Remember Kellen Moore? I think he put up 400 yards against the Redskins, I believe his last final year or something like that in 2000, and I want to say 15 or something like that. He put up 400 yards. The guy is cerebral, and I'm thinking what he's doing collectively is transferring some of his knowledge over to Dak Prescott. And that's why you see a better gameplay out of Dak Prescott because of Kellen Moore.
Let's stick with that because I think that's a perfect segue to my next question, and that is Kellen Moore. What's the biggest difference you see in this offense between Scott Linehan, the ex-offensive coordinator, and now Kellen Moore and what he's been doing this season? It's a small sample size, I know.
Right,
only one game.
Small.
What have you seen?
You can't crown them yet, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
What I see is this right here. The same philosophy is the same philosophy. Football is not a new invention, right? It's still 11 versus 11. That's just what it is. But what I'm listening in to what the team is saying is what Kellen Moore does differently than Scott Linehan is that he listened. He listened to the players. And we already know that for those who out there that play Madden, that grew up playing the game and these sorts, it's all about rapport. And I'm not saying that football, the professional football level is like Madden, but what I'm saying is John Madden, for those who don't know, is what I'm saying is that sometimes these young players can get a good feel of the game, and they can go to Kellen Moore and say, hey, remember that play we ran in training camp that worked against this particular formation? Let's run it again. But see, they couldn't have that same flow with Scott Linehan. Because Scott Linehan was that old guy who was stuck in his ways, basically. And you guys had the same philosophy back in the days when y'all had Sean McVay on your offensive coordinations. You see, I think you saw the likings of a Chris Thompson lighting it up. You saw the other kid, I forgot his name, that he was a slot guy, that they was putting him in every Crowder, yes. They was putting him in every formation. They was moving him around, and you saw the philosophy there. So what I'm looking at is with Kellen Moore is that the players are comfortable going to him and saying, okay, can we run this play? And when they was going to Scott Linehan said, no. When I had Randy Moss, we did it this way. Or when he was coaching Megatron, he said, hey, I did it this way. And when he was coaching Dez Bryant for a short spell, I done it this way. So he wasn't willing to change. And we didn't have a Randy Moss. We didn't have a Megatron, you see, last year. Right. And that's just what happened. So I believe that's why you're seeing the offense being a little more relaxed opposed to being uptight.
So when you look at this football team, there's talent everywhere. And it pains me to say this because I've watched the Cowboys, much like my Redskins, struggle for many, many years. But of late, the Cowboys have done a magnificent job of drafting football players. I feel like the Redskins are getting better in that department, but we still got a ways to go. But I feel like the Cowboys have been accumulating a lot of talent over the last few years. But when I look at this roster, there aren't a whole, but there are a couple that I can, or at least players that I can point to and say, I'm not all that impressed by specific players. One being a guy that just got a massive deal in Lyle Collins. I think he's better guard than he is tackle, but that's another conversation for another day. What are the biggest weak links on this football team, on both sides of the football, in your estimation?
On the defensive side, you got to look at safety, and we are subject to being over aggressive in certain parts of our game as it relates to Jeff Heath. He'd probably be a guy that can get exposed in a sense because he's so aggressive. But outside of that, the kick, the other weakness that I can think of, and that's a good problem to have.
Yes.
If you can put up money on the board, because you wouldn't rely on a kicker. So that's the only weakness that I look at. Now, somebody can yell out and say, well, the quarterback and these sorts of things, but the quarterback just had, so I don't think that he's going to be a weak part of this team heading into week 2. Now, I would say this. The Redskins team, your team, the team that you love, you don't like them, you love them.
Love them.
I looked at your team as a strong front four, the front, physical, got all of the pressure inside. You guys, everybody in our division collectively drafted to stop Ezekiel Elliott, which is good. Got big bodies inside. I call them the Bama boys, but I heard that one of you guys are down one, right? Jonathan?
Yes, Jonathan Allen. Right now, we're not sure if he's going to play or not. Right now, it's kind of up in the air. He went and got a second opinion the other day. Right now, he's day-to-day. If you leave it up to him, he'll play. He's one of those guys you have to protect from himself. So if he is on the fence, I think they end up holding him out of this game. But if he's sure that he can go and the doctors say, look, he can't injure it any further, he'll probably be out there on Sunday.
Oh, wow. So Jonathan Allen, then Fabian Monroe, is he going to play?
Right now, again, another one of these up in the air. We got several guys that are up in the air. He's one of them. He did practice yesterday, not a full practice, limited practice. Same for today, limited practice. Tomorrow will really tell the story as to whether if he's going to play or not. Jay Gruden talked about it at his presser today that it looks like tomorrow will be a big deal for a lot of these guys in terms of them being available on Sunday or not.
And the other kid, Dunbar, I think his name's Quentin.
Yes, Dunbar. Same thing, same boat. He's in the same exact boat. They really don't know. I really don't think he's going to play. If I had to guess, I think he's going to be out. Monte Nicholson, our safety, also a question mark. A lot of people think he may not be able to play in this game. So, again, the trend continues with this Redskins team and injuries. We're not even into week 2 yet, and we already have guys just about every level on the defense down, and we're looking at their backup players and thinking that they may have to contribute in a major way in week 2. So it's no different, but we'll see how it goes.
On the bright side, they're injured now. They can be healthy towards the latter part of the year. That's how you can look at it. You
can look at it that way, but when you're a Redskins fan, you don't look at it that way. You just look at it as guys missing time, and when they get back, somebody else, they're going to tag in, and somebody else is going to tag out. That's generally how we do it in these neck of the woods. We're hoping, and we're going to knock on a little bit of wood here, knocking a little bit of wood, hopefully that it's different this year, but so far, not so good for the Redskins. Let me ask you something.
Talk to me.
I wanted this because on this side, the rivalry hasn't eroded as much as it's just not burning. That fire isn't burning as bright as it once did. Maybe some of that has to do with the fact that you guys have been dominant over us for the last 6-7 years. But is the rivalry still strong on your end? As Cowboys fans, do you still view the Redskins as your biggest rival, or do you view someone else in the division as your biggest rival?
Some of the older fans that was born in the 70s and the 80s, they kind of still have that bitter taste of the Redskins winning the Super Bowls in the late 80s and the early 90s. So they still have that, I would never forget about the Redskins, you see. So you got that from our fan base. Now, some of the newer generation, I'm talking about, this is like after the RG3 situation. They really are more so of the Eagles per se. So
That makes sense.
me, I'm looking at it, the Redskins are the Redskins. They are pretty much a team that's going to always play us tough. It's not going to be an easy game. The defensive front is always going to be nasty. They bring in a lot of pressure. Now that you guys got Josh Norman, some of that situation transferred from the Carolina Panthers. Remember, he called Dez out and these sorts of things, and some of that rivalry spilled over. Now, I would say with Josh Norman, he's a hell of a zone cover corner. He can press. He can press at times pretty good. But my thing is, he had problems. He's subject to jumping on the double moves. He's subject to being lost out in space as it relates to open up his hips and things like that with speedy receivers. So I would like to see Josh Norman versus Amari Cooper, seeing if he can do anything, because I love DB play. But he gonna have to step it up, and he got to be the heart and soul of this team. Because I don't think Landon Collins will be, because the Landon Collins is more of a box guy. To me personally, it's just me, just my thoughts. He's not a cover range to range guy. Nowhere clear or near Sean Taylor's of the world, but he is a guy that you can put inside the box. So he's a smaller linebacker that's on your team that, if they can shut down the run for my Dallas Cowboys and make us one dimensional, then they can hold a lot of pressure on this team. But that's only if they can shut down the run and we abandon the pass and we try to run, and you guys can really put us in dangerous or treacherous water.
And that's similar to what happened last year in the first contest. The lack of talent was evident last year. After the Redskins game last year, that's when you traded for Amari Cooper, because there just weren't many options available for Dak Prescott. Redskins shut down Ezekiel Elliott in that game, 15 carries, something like 33 yards, something along those lines. So it's going to take one of those types of efforts. But the difference in this game versus last year, we kind of saw it in the Thanksgiving game last year, is just way more weaponry for the Cowboys at their disposal, and it's going to give them more options to be able to spread the football around. Now you add Jason Witten in the mix. I'm not as much concerned about him as a pass catcher as I am, in the run game, is him being able to set the physical edge in the run game and be able to be stopped at the point of attack. So it'll be interesting to see how this game develops. I think it is going to take a big deal of the Redskins getting pressure, because we didn't get pressure last week on Carson Wentz, and you saw what he was able to do. I agree with your assessment of Josh Norman in terms of him opening up his hips. That's where he struggles. That's why Deshaun Jackson was able to run by him last week, despite him being in zone and off. Jackson still able to run by him because his transition from back pedal to flipping his hips and full sprint isn't the cleanest nor the fastest. So he's a guy that he did a good job on, and he always does a good job on bigger receivers.
Yeah.
But it's guys that are shifty, that have the ability to get in and out of breaks and have that ability to accelerate that he struggles with. So it'll be interesting to see if the Redskins, one, can get pressure on the Cowboys. I think one is stopping Ezekiel Elliott. I think you got to start there. That's where it begins and ends, really. It's stopping Zeke Elliott, and then finding a way to get pressure on Dak Prescott, who, if nothing else, and my biggest nightmare with him has always been his ability to extend plays and escape the pocket. We have never been able to really contain him. I remember 2 big runs last Thanksgiving where he just broke our back. We tried to get back into the game. It's like a 3rd and 12, and he ends up running for a touchdown when we had him bottled up. And it's those types of plays. And it goes all the way back to Tony Romo. We had trouble containing Tony Romo in the pocket. It's even worse now with Dak Prescott because he's a little bit more of a better athlete. So that's going to be big. All these receivers, all these injuries to the secondary, it doesn't bode well for the Redskins. Yet I still feel like this is a game that is going to be up in the air. I think a lot of people saw the Cowboys' performance last week and just expect them to come into FedEx and score a bunch of points and win this thing going away. I don't see that being the case. So that leads me to my final question for you. What is your prediction for this game?
Oh, man, I got 28-13 Dallas Cowboys all day, baby. Yeah.
So, you essentially pretty much said what I just said, which is a lot of people think that this is going to be a Cowboys victory going away. And no sooner do you say 28-13, Cowboys come in, take care of business, and leave 2-0 on the season. I do not feel the same way. Obviously, now I'll be the first to tell you when I don't think we're going to win a football game. I did not think we were going to beat the Eagles last week, but I do, however, think the Redskins have enough to get it done. Saw some things last week, even though the Giants, I think they're going to be horrible this year, and you took full advantage of a team that I think isn't going to be very good. Did see some things from the Giants that gives me hope that the Redskins may be able to score some points and make this a much more competitive football game than you think, and possibly steal it at the end. So, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the program behind enemy lines here on the Redskins Nightly News. Tell the people where they can find you before I let you go.
I was going to give you my one reservation against my team opposed to yours, but, if you don't mind if I can squeeze this out, I got to put this out there to the universe. Now, I'm not going to be super homer when I talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I have to be objective. And speaking objectively, this guy, Adrian Peterson, scares me. And here's why. And y'all listen up to me, Redskin Nation, if there ever such a thing, right? But Redskin.
All the disrespect. All the disrespect.
But shout out to you all. But my thing is, Adrian Peterson on the first part of anybody's year, he's fresh. And he knows the tape. He studies tape. He lives in the tape room. He can block. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run in between the tackles. And this is our weakness right now, in between the tackles. I believe that that if the Redskins use our linebackers, our strength as our weakness, then you guys can capitalize. Saquon Barkley had that same notion last week. Y'all saw him gashed up for 59 yards. And I recall the first time we played against Adrian Peterson, he stiff throwing my brother from another mother. No other. Don't look like Danny Glover, Jeff Heath. You remember that? He was running. He ran for 99 yards on us. So right now we're going to be facing against a healthy Adrian Peterson, and we got to rally and chase. And the biggest thing for Case Keenum, we know that he got an arm, and we can't sleep on Terry McLaurin. That's his name, right?
Scary Terry, baby.
Terry can take the top off the defense like no other. And if you guys can start that play action and get and hit us and gash us with a few runs, and then we creeping and moving our safeties inside, we moving our linebackers a little closer to the LOS. The battle in the game is won in the trenches. It can be a long day. And don't let us wear the dark navy blue jerseys too. Yes. We gotta wear the white. Because this is a 12 o'clock game, early game.
It's a 1 o'clock game. Ooh,
12 1 o'clock. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's when the sun is at its highest peak, and it's going to be beaming down on us. So we got to figure out a way to stop and shut down the run early and often. If not, Adrian Peterson, and you guys still got some backup running backs to give him a spell as well. So it's not going to be a
I'm really excited to see him back in the lineup. I think that's a very valid point. I talked about it on the show as one of my keys to victory is him getting back in the lineup. And I think he gives us the best chance to win at the running back position. And so I feel really good about him being reinserted. And I think he gives us our best shot at the running back position. And I like what that brings. I think that energy he's going to bring to this offense. I think they love blocking for him. And I think he's a guy that obviously can make the first guy miss, be his own blocker. And it gives you a chance in the run game, something that we didn't have a week ago. So
I can say this. Jay Gruden lost that first game for you because there's no way in life. You up 17-0 and you got one of the best running backs in the league. He's sitting in street clothes. Come on now.
Yeah. You know what? I felt like this was more on the defense than it was on the offense. But you can look at it both ways. I mean, the offense needed to get at least a first down. They couldn't do it. The defense needed to get a stop. They couldn't do it. It's it goes both ways. But at the end of the day, you'd love the defense to be able to get the ball back to the offense more than just 3 times in the second half.
Yes, indeed. So that's why I say it's going to be a rough game. You guys are going to score first again. But we're going to come out with
you can't think it's going to be that rough. You got 28-13, man.
Hey. It could be 13-0, and everybody like, oh, look at the Cowboys. Hey, we knew it. We knew it.
Unanswered, man. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. But this is the thing. On both sides of the ball, before I tell everybody where they can find me at. On both sides of the ball, Louie, you got to look at it like this. if the Cowboys really about their work action and they talking about they want to host a Lombardi trophy and we sipping on the Cowboys Kool-Aid, they got to show us something, this week. They got to show us something. And then you never doubt a team with their back against the wall. Nobody never want to start off 0-2.
Right.
So it's a home game for you all. FedEx Field is no, it's not a vacation spot. So the fans are going to be out there. They're going to be pumped. They're going to be ready. They're going to say the first game was just real little rush. We knocked that off. And now we're going to figure out how to scan those Cowboys because that's how that's going to be. You see what I'm saying? So everybody's going to be up there in the stands, rally. They're going to be all ready to say, okay, they talking about they an Americans team. We finna show them who's the national capital team, whatever y'all saying is. So I know there's gonna be a dogfight, but I'm just saying I'm going with the score 28-13. That's all I have to say, my friend.
All right. Tell the people where they can find you.
Oh man, you guys can find me at L.A.B Nation. You can type that in on your Facebook or your Instagram. I'm on Twitter as well, MySpace, Black Planet. You just find me, L.A.B Nation. I'm there. Let's come on. And remember, you all are listening to nothing but the best. Salute.
All right, man. So that's Behind Enemy Lines. Law Thomas of Law Nation. The Dallas Cowboys, week 2, Redskins at home facing the Cowboys in a massive NFC East family business matchup. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. Thank you guys for joining me. See you next time.
Louie T Network.